What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Well, it looks like things are starting to flip for Crimson Desert with a massive update that was released, as well as some shifting viewpoints, especially when it comes to reviews and Steam and other places, and we'll go over all of that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about a gaming event that's happening later on this week with some big time reveals, especially with one title that people have been very curious about coming out of Sega, and then it seems a few other surprises, including maybe some things going into Game Pass, so we'll take a look at what we can expect there. And we also have Nintendo in Japan, which we know they're very, very popular, but it turns out the phrase Nintendo, the brand Nintendo, isn't actually the most popular gaming term there. Now, it's maybe something you wouldn't necessarily expect, but we'll go over all of that and more. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button or link in the description down below. And we're gonna start today with Capcom and Generative AI. And that was, of course, a big talking point after they participated in the DLSS 5 demonstrations with Resident Evil Requiem. Well, with a recent Q&A with investors that was published on their website, you can see this. And this is just one of the questions asking about how they're going to handle generative AI in game development. With Capcom answering, our company will not implement the materials generated by our AI into game content. However, we plan to actively utilize this technology to improve efficiency and productivity in the game development process. Therefore, we are currently exploring ways to use it in various areas, such as graphics, sound, and programming. This, I don't think is too surprising at this time. We, of course, keep hearing about how behind the scenes in development, AI is being used lightly, but it seems like it's being more and more included going forward. And yes, that's going to be more about convenience or speeding up development process. But also, I think like QA, bug checking is one of the best things that AI can be used for at this time. But who knows, maybe see I wouldn't be shocked if we see a studio pop up and it's 10 people and they want to just go all in on generative AI and try to turn out some sort of title. But at least here for Capcom, seems like they're being a bit more reserved. Just understand though, many of these big publishers are probably going to be integrating AI in more meaningful ways in the development process without really advertising it that much. Also, we do have a delay for a Switch 2 game, that being High on Life 2. We can see this. This is over on their social media account, saying, that being said, High on Life 2's debut on the console will shift from April 20th to July 1st of 2026. They just cite the need for additional elbow grease towards production that'll ultimately allow the studio to better meet not only our high standards for the gaming, but yours as well. So I don't know, the porting over to the Switch 2 being maybe a little more difficult than they were expecting, and they're just not going to be able to meet that release date that would have been in a month. The thing is, I mean, the game has been out for a little while now. It didn't exactly light up the scoreboards or anything, but it was still, I think from what I'm seeing, I haven't had a chance to actually even play the game yet. It's at least well received by the people who enjoyed High on Life 1. So it'll be another game to check out for the Switch 2 as we get into the summer. Oh, and here's something fun for retro game fans. The Wii, yes, that system is retro, now has achievements, kind of. So you can see this. This is over on their social media account for Retro Achievements, saying Nintendo Wii is now available on Retro Achievements. And here's the way this works, all right? So you would be playing this through Dolphin, an emulator, and it's linked up to their website, which does all the tracking as people submit entire achievement lists that will be used for different games. And actually, as part of this forum post that they have here, they go over all the different titles that currently have achievement support. Basically, when you're all signed up, you then set that up with your emulator, that being Dolphin, linked to the website. As you play these games in real time, it will unlock achievements. It even has an entire notification system. It's really cool stuff. I think it'd be really fun if that worked its way over to the actual Wii hardware, but at least for now, from what we're seeing, you can set it all up right now on an emulator and start getting achievements right now on the Wii. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with a big gaming event that'll be happening here in a few days, and that's coming out of Microsoft. Now we can see this. This is over on news.xbox.com, as they did announce an Xbox partner preview. This will be happening Thursday, March 26th, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern time, and they even give us an idea as to a few games and studios we can expect to be here, and that does include Sega, GSC Game World, and Owlcat Games, plus brand new reveals, world premieres, and Xbox Game Pass announcements. So while they do list off 3 titles and studios, sounds like there's gonna be a bit more here outside of those. And that is exciting because, well, while they give us an idea as to the 3 games, I think there could be some legitimate like surprises here and some fun stuff, maybe even a few shadow drops, one at least into Game Pass itself right then and there. But they do say you'll get an in-depth look at RGG's new project, Stranger Than Heaven, an update on Stalker 2 Heart of Chernobyl, plus new looks at The Expanse: Osiris Reborn, an action RPG set in the world of James S.A. Corey's legendary series. That's not all we have for you, with first looks and announcements from more great games coming to Xbox consoles, Xbox on PC, and Game Pass. So The Expanse is a game right now that is drawing a lot of comparisons to Mass Effect. Like, if you watch it, it's a kind of third-person sci-fi over-the-shoulder space game, and yeah, they definitely drew a lot of it. In fact, it seems like they're just welcoming those comparisons. And why wouldn't you? Mass Effect is a great series. So you'd be like, yes, we are very much like Mass Effect. All the Mass Effect fans should come check out our new game. Otherwise, Stalker 2, I guess new content there for that one. Obviously, a lot of people are very, very curious about Stranger Than Heaven. We had that trailer last year that, got a lot of buzz. It's RGG with a new IP, and there's a lot of excitement around what they could have here. It looked kind of strange, but also pretty brutal and violent, and it drew a lot of conversation. So I'm interested if they have, new gameplay for it. Would they have a release timing or date or anything for this? It's interesting to see that here. And I know, look, it's Sega. People see Sega, they see Xbox, and they go, wait a minute. Could there be something Persona related here? I think it's RGG, okay? I think it's Stranger Than Heaven. I think it's what we're going to see here. But who knows? We could have all kinds of other fun surprises here to check out. So definitely keep an eye on this one. Of course, I'll keep you guys up to date when it does happen on Thursday. The following morning, Friday, we'll go over everything that was announced here in Newswave. Next up, let's talk about brand power in Japan, because I think most people, when it comes to gaming, understand that Nintendo is very, very popular there in Japan. We talk about the Famitsu sales charts from time to time, and typically Nintendo is just rolling along with the Switch and the Switch 2 and the Switch 1. Just tens of millions of systems have sold just in Japan, and the Switch 2 is off to a fast start. But when it comes to brand recognition, there's a lot more outside of gaming, of course, they can take over there. But it was funny, there was a survey that was done by Nikkei, and I was looking up and down the list, and it was interesting the way they had it set up because, well, number one was YouTube. And it's like, yeah, okay, YouTube, that's like universal at this point, all age groups, everything, it makes sense, all right? But then I saw number 2 and I went, whoa, okay, this is interesting. All right, so let's take a look. This is over on Automaton Media. They say this is the general consumer edition of the survey. It was conducted in November last year, covered 1,000 different brands with a sample of 37,000 respondents. I do like the way that they've split this up. So they have it where it's rank among respondents under 20 years old, and then just rank among all generations. Of course, the age group 20 and under is very important to a lot of brands because that's the generation that eventually is going to enter the workforce and spend a lot of money and then maybe pass on the stuff that they enjoy to the next generation. So it's always about, okay, what's happening here? How are we viewed by the younger generation coming up? Okay, so number 1, as I mentioned, was YouTube. Makes sense. It's universal at this point. Number 2, though, it's Nintendo Switch, and then it's Nintendo. So Nintendo Switch is a more popular brand on its own, just outright, than Nintendo themselves, with the respondents under 20 years old. Now, if you have all generations, Nintendo is more popular than Nintendo Switch. But, you look at this and you go, okay, Disney is number 10 among all respondents under 20 and 14 among all generations. So you kind of see, if you just do all generations, the positions move around quite a bit. But nonetheless, Nintendo Switch with the younger generation that is, again, upcoming, and they view that as something that's more recognizable, has more brand power than just Nintendo. And what that tells me is, like, we see Nintendo Switch right now and then the Switch 2. What do you think is going to be next in 7 years or something like that? 8 years? Yeah, it's probably the Switch 3. And that's just kind of the cycle Nintendo, I think, is in now. It's just Nintendo Switch is incredibly popular, that brand, especially in Japan. But I think, most places now, because the Switch 2017, still technically ongoing, but it's been 9 years. And you poll people who are under the age of 20, let's say they're 18, and they got their Switch when they were 9, 10, and that's been the system they've grown up with. It is crazy to think that way, but yes, the Switch is popular because it's many people's first system coming up, and that's going to stick with you. So not really surprising, I guess, in that regard, but just something interesting to think about, and why Nintendo probably did just put a 2 on the end of it, and why they probably will eventually put a 3, and then maybe a 4. Who knows what the future looks like, but something tells me they're going to stick with this brand for quite a while. Next up, let's talk about Crimson Desert, because we had a massive update that went out. And it's interesting because this game has not been out for that long. It came out last week, and then a few days later, we start getting all these updates happening. In one day, I think on the PS5, there was at least 2 updates that happened, and then this large one. And this is quite substantial. It's not just a small hot fix or, oh, here's like a little paragraph of a few things that we did. No, it's like pages and pages of just bullet points of different things that have been fixed or updated. And so like we can just go through the page here. Now, this patch is currently live at this time that I've seen for the PlayStation, and it seems like it's now available on the Xbox. I say that because it went out in waves, and people were saying it wasn't, they had to like search for it specifically on their platform, so it finally popped up. It seems at the time of this recording, when you're seeing this video, everything should be out now. I think the Epic Game Store was going through some stuff too, but Xbox, PlayStation, Steam, all that should be good. All right, so when we look up and down the list here, I mean, it covers quests, it covers content, it covers controls, boss fights and combat, NPC and NPC dialogue, UI fixes and improvements, graphics, and settings. They even dropped 120 hertz mode within the settings, a toggle for PS5 and Xbox, performance stability and gameplay, localization, and you know, I'm looking up and down this list and like, man, they changed, for example, the HP of the bosses. They made it so you only have to see a move once instead of twice to learn it, which I think is great because it was really annoying to have to see that move twice. But the thing I looked at and said, wow, really, it's okay, improved the response speed of the interaction UI, improved the responsiveness of jump inputs, fixed aiming to target the center of screen when using a lantern or while unarmed. And from what I've seen so far, because I was playing the game before the update went out. The update gets pushed. I then turn the game back on because I turned it off and like walked away from it for a bit. And I do the update and I'm like, okay, the controls feel way better now. Not that they're in a better configuration, I'll say, like for how they have what map to what button. But what I had mentioned before, if you've been watching, I said, hey, it feels like there is this almost purposeful delay or input lag to any of these buttons that I press. So when you go to swing a sword, it's R1. On the PlayStation, if I would tap it at times, nothing would happen because it didn't seem like it was registering the input. I had to kind of press and hold a little bit for it to work. Not really the case anymore. Now it's much more likely to actually swing a sword when I just tap R1. Jumping, movement, everything is just snappier now. So I don't really know what happened here. As what I mean by that is these patches don't exactly just happen overnight typically. They take a little bit of time, but this was ready to go just a few days after. So all I can imagine is they're getting feedback during the review process even, and they start working on it right then and there. The thing that's kind of a shame, this game feels like a title that out of the gate, it gets the reviews that it did. It gets negative feedback on places like Steam, all right? And it seems like slowly people are going to be playing the game more and more. We're going to be getting these kind of updates to, you could say fix, but definitely improve the experience. And then we're going to come out the other end with a game that I think is just going to be much, much better. It's going to be kind of an accelerated No Man's Sky almost. I guess it wasn't as bad as No Man's Sky got ugly there at the beginning, but it's going to be definitely accelerated at the rate that they're going right now. I mean, if you look over on Steam, reviews have been coming in that are just completely positive now. So it's gone from negative up to mostly positive now, and the concurrent player count has continued to do pretty well, bouncing anywhere between 160,000 like 200,000+ people playing. So I haven't seen any other sales milestones that they've announced. Last was 2 million copies sold as of the end of last week, but maybe sometime this week they announced 3 million or 4 million or something. I'm sure they would like to announce more sales milestones to try to affect their stock in a more positive direction at this time after the beating they took because of those Metacritic scores. But I'm telling you, I'm getting a kick out of this game now. I am almost 20 hours in and it has gotten much better. And I kind of feel like those scores now, those reviews are they're just gonna be kind of out of date after we get through what I assume are going to be many more patches, because apparently they're going to fix the controls now. They've talked about working out maybe some of the early parts of the game for onboarding, and they're just going crazy right now trying to work on this game, which also makes me think they probably would have benefited from it coming out in April instead of March. But either way, they would have had to have gotten people to play the game more, and that's how they're getting a lot of this feedback. So I don't know if they would have done a beta or something, but either way, hey, Crimson Desert getting better, just about in a position where I could probably recommend it to most people. Just understand, slow going in the beginning. I would say the first 5 or 6 hours are kind of painful, actually. And then once you break through and you start getting more powerful and more weapons and the world opens up more and more, yeah, it's a legitimately impressive and fun game. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about some publishers that flew a bit too close to the sun with Sony, as we are seeing games get, once again, delisted on PlayStation Network, or I guess now it's just called, I don't know, PlayStation, based on the rebranding that's apparently happening. Nonetheless, this is something we've seen from Sony before, where there were a lot of repackaged AI-like titles, and when hundreds, thousands even from the same publisher hit the storefront over the course of a year or two, Sony's probably going to look at you a bit more, and now we have a couple more examples. This we can see is over on Push Square, saying Nostra Games spammed Sony storefront with almost 700 games over the years, most notably Sims. And you see Sim games constantly, and they just look like, shovelware junk for the most part, and it does clog up the store quite a bit. Recently, it hit headlines, though, for its cat co-op game Ghostly Whiskers, which was accused of being an AI-generated knockoff of Haunted Paws. In a statement on its Discord, a spokesperson for the studio said it didn't know why its titles had been removed. Unfortunately, PS Store has removed our games, and we're unable to provide an exact reason because it wasn't shared with us either. For now, we are planning to continue releasing on Nintendo Switch, Xbox, and Steam. This was just as unexpected for us as it was for you, as we had planned to continue releasing games in the coming years, and you've already seen some of them. But unfortunately, this is how things turned out. Thank you for your questions, but unfortunately, we are in the dark as well. Now, another company, it seems, that was affected, CGI Lab. They had their software axed, only a few titles to its name, so it's not clear why its output has been cut, but it released extremely low-effort horror games like Platform Zero and Veins of Darkness. You know, the most surprising thing I feel like about all this is that Nostra Games had an active Discord that they felt the need to respond as to where their games went. Look, you just take a look at the list of titles, and it kind of answers itself at that point. It ends up being low-effort games that, end up being copies of themselves with a few things tweaked here and there. And eventually Sony, Nintendo definitely, they need to think about more and more curation of their platforms, because eventually it does just look like junk to try to wade through any of this to find good games. And not only does that hurt the customer viewing and browsing experience, but it also hurts the publishers who are trying to put out, I'll say, more legitimate efforts at games. You know, like they don't release hundreds of games in a span of a month or two. They're putting out 1, 2, 3 games or something, and they're more notable titles. Even indie titles that they spend 5 years working on a thing, they finally get on the store, only to get buried by one button press platinum trophy games. Yeah, that's tough. So I'd actually prefer Sony to be a little more strict with some of these games that are allowed on the store, especially when it's just like obvious. You can have subjective looks at different games, like, oh, okay, it's a sim game, but there's a game there. When it ends up being just, blatant at one point, they fly too close to the sun, yeah, you're probably gonna cut them down. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild the best Zelda game ever made? Okay, 67% say no, so that's the field, and then 33% say yes. That's actually kind of impressive, because it is indeed Breath of the Wild versus the field of Zelda games, and there are many, many titles. In fact, when I looked in the comments, people were shouting out all different Zelda games that they liked more, like, oh, Ocarina of Time, no, Link to the Past, no, it's Majora's Mask, no, it's Tears of the Kingdom. So that's the thing, right? It's Breath of the Wild against all these other ones, and 33%, a third, saying that yes, it is the best one ever made. That's pretty good. I feel like that's going to do, I want to say it would do better than any other Zelda game. I don't know, maybe Ocarina of Time, because if you think about the most popular games, Breath of the Wild should be the most popular. It's sold the most. But I guess you could look at Ocarina as, for many people out there who are really plugged in, that's like their favorite Zelda game ever made, right? So maybe the popularity side. Still though, this came about because I saw Jeff Kaplan, I think, say that Breath of the Wild is the best game ever made. And I'm like, well, I wonder if it's the best Zelda game ever made. So that's why I wanted to put the poll out there. Breath of the Wild versus The Field. I think it held up pretty well. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Citrus, who says, I get the feeling that it was just supposed to be for testing will be the excuse every time AI is discovered in these games. Oh, absolutely. I mean, you have to imagine that people will start to they got to catch on eventually. It's like, okay, hold on a minute. This has happened 4 or 5 times now. And it's always like, oh, it was in testing and it slipped right past us. It's like, okay. So eventually they have to learn from that and go, you know what? Maybe we should double check some of those images that we know we AI generated. Maybe we should go back and just double check. I mean, at some point you can use AI to double check for AI. There you go. I mean, if you're going to use AI for bug checking, which again has come up a lot, maybe you use AI to check if there's any AI generated images still left in your game before you ship the thing and before it goes gold, or maybe you have it ready to go for a day 1 patch and no one ever really knows that it was there. So no, I think that's always going to be the default. It was in testing. We'll go ahead and get that out of there. Sorry you noticed. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you want to hear more about some of the stuff that's been happening with DLSS 5, because it's been something else. I did an entire video just going over updates for that whole thing, and I'll leave right below. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.